Hey guys, it's Lauren. Today's video is going to be a tutorial about how to not sell your soul to the internet. And okay, this video is so long. Like, my video notes look crazy, but here's the outline. Chapter 1, what does that even mean? Chapter 2, why are public figures and content creators particularly at risk of selling their soul? And what are the problems with that? Chapter 3 is how to create content without selling your soul. Chapter 4 is actionable steps to prevent selling your soul. And then Chapter 5, limitations and conclusion. Chapter 1, what does that even mean? So I made this title based off a comment I saw on my YouTube video titled "Why You Should Make a YouTube Channel According to Philosophy," where I go over the reasons for why you should make a YouTube channel. And in that comment, okay, I couldn't find it first of all, but it was along the lines of, hey Lauren, I really do want to make YouTube videos, but whenever I do publicize information about myself, it feels like I'm giving away a piece of my soul. So like, how do I overcome that? And at the time, a few months ago, I didn't have an answer to that, but I do now. So yeah, to properly define selling your soul, I'm going to use this definition I made. And that's the feeling of regret and discomfort that one feels after oversharing vulnerable or personal information about themselves on the internet. So chapter 2, why are content creators and public figures particularly at risk of selling their soul? And in chapter 2.1, I'm going to explain why content creators are particularly prone to selling their soul. And then in chapter 2.2, I'm going to talk about the problems. But the first reason why content creators are prone to selling their soul is the online disinhibition effect. In a paper published by Suler in 2004, all the sources are in the description, by the way. The online disinhibition effect is described as while online, some people self-disclose like information about themselves or act out more frequently or intensely than they would in person. So when we're online, we tend to share a little bit more information because we're not bound to face-to-face communication. Okay, so now that we've talked about the online disinhibition effect, I'm going to talk about its implications. So this study, titled this by Zian King in 2015, they measured the amount of posting regret that teenagers felt on Facebook particularly. And two findings were really interesting to me. One of them was having strangers as the teenagers' Facebook friends led to the teenagers disclosing more about information about themselves, and it also increased the amount that they regretted from posting a lot about themselves. And adding on to that, having a larger network size, like having a larger following or audience, meant that they would disclose more information about themselves and also have higher regret from disclosing information about themselves. And this relates to why content creators are prone to soul selling, because with YouTube, you know, a majority of your audience are strangers, and as you continue doing YouTube, the amount of audience, like your network size, grows, and that could also lead to a heightened online disinhibition effect or oversharing about yourself as that occurs. So that's one of the reasons why content creators are prone to soul selling. Now moving on to the second reason, the desire to understand ourselves. As Kant famously said, know thyself. And this is basically saying that we have a moral obligation to fully understand ourselves and our motivations so that we can kind of harmonize how we feel internally and what we do externally. And I really do believe that understanding ourselves is a key component of living, because if you understand yourself well, you understand the world well, and it's just important in life to understand yourself and the world. And why this relates to content creation, because through having a YouTube audience, you feel like you're learning about yourself, because a main method of self-knowledge is understanding who we are based on various social contexts. And when we do YouTube, we are open to so many different perspectives of ourselves. So it's like, it feels like you're learning a lot about yourself, because there's so many social contexts happening between you and the individual audience members. So being perceived by other people makes you feel like you have a better understanding of yourself. So that's the second reason. Then the third reason is not really clearly knowing what the social context of you and the audience, like your YouTube audience, is. And let me explain it with this model I made. So I'm sure you all know the iceberg model of YouTube, where they kind of talk about a topic and then they dive deep into all of the implications of the topic. And I wanted to use this model to categorize the social relationships we have in real life. I title this the iceberg of the individual. I'm using Robert Sternberg's theory of relationships, and he's famous for his triangular theory of love, where he says that intimacy, passion, and commitment are key to a good romantic relationship. But we're not talking about romance right now. I wanted to talk about this model in application to our friendship relationships. And the model is acquaintanceship, friendship, close friendship, and best friendship, but I added another one, which is your journal. So as the iceberg kind of flows, the relationship gets deeper. And as the relationship intensity goes from acquaintances to best friendship, you disclose more information about yourself, because you wouldn't tell an acquaintance some deeper things about yourself, right? So, acquaintanceship is what people see on the surface. As the relationship deepens, the amount of information, the amount of vulnerable information you talk about increases as well. And why am I bringing up this model? Well, it's because with your YouTube audience, you don't really exactly know what kind of social relationship you have with them. So it's kind of unclear where you categorize them in a social way. So just to recap, the 3 reasons for why content creators are at risk of selling their soul on the internet is the online disinhibition effect, the desire to know themselves, and then the ambiguity of the audience. Like, we don't know how to categorize them on our relationship iceberg. So we don't know like how much we're supposed to say about ourselves. Okay, chapter 2.2 is the problems with oversharing on the internet. So overall in this chapter, I'm going to explain that your YouTube audience can never be a kind of full encapsulation of who you are as a person. So we're making the mistake of trying to gain information of ourselves through our audience. In Principles of Psychology, William James writes, "A man has many social selves, as there are individuals who recognize him and carry an image of him in their mind. To wound any one of these images is to wound him. But as the individuals who carry the images fall naturally into classes, we may practically say that he has as many different social selves as there are distinct groups of persons about whose opinion he cares. He generally shows a different side of himself to each of these different groups." So even though our YouTube audience is a very distinct group of people who we gain a sense of ourselves from, we are making the mistake of thinking that our online persona is contingent with our like holistic person. And And let me explain how this occurs with this cycle I've come up with. So first, we overshare about ourselves online because of all the reasons I shared in the other chapter, but we overshare about ourselves online. And then we read the comments and see how people perceive us. And then we come to believe that our online audience knows who we are as people very well because we've given them information. So we're like, okay, they must be accurate in their perception of us because I've overshared and then they're telling us how they perceive us based on our oversharing. So then we think we understand ourselves better because we have all of these various perceptions that people have laid out for us. And then we think that our self-knowledge has increased because of the amount of people perceiving us. And then because we feel rewarded that we understand ourselves better, we continue oversharing about ourselves, trying to as accurately depict ourselves as possible. And then, the cycle continues. That's the trap, I think, because even though we could never accurately capture who we are as people on the internet, this cycle makes it so that we never stop trying and then never stop incorporating other people, like our YouTube audience's perception into our self-understanding. And let me further prove this point through the looking glass self, which is a psychological theory by Charles Horton Cooley. And this is basically saying that our self-perception is derived from how we think we are perceived by different people in our lives. So we're surrounding ourselves with looking glasses or like mirrors, and we're getting a reflection back from these groups of people and then acting accordingly to how we think we are perceived. And I bring this theory up because even though I do believe that other people's perception of us is important in curating our understanding of ourselves, with YouTubers and content creators, I think we could easily get a lot of our self-perception from our audience, which I call the skewing of the looking glass self. Though I do think the perception of our YouTube audience plays some kind of role in self-knowledge, we cannot get to the point where we're lessening other groups of people's perception of us, such as family, friends, etc. And I think relying heavily on our YouTube audience for our self-perception also has to do with just the amount of opinions there are out there. And I think our heavy reliance on our YouTube audience to gain a sense of self-understanding is also in part due to just the amount of people there are perceiving us when we are sharing on an online platform. Because it feels like because there's so many different opinions, we're really getting the range of what people think about us. But in reality, the person that we portray to the internet will always be fixed, no matter how many people have an opinion about who you are. So yes, those are the problems I have with oversharing on the internet. Third chapter, how do you create content without selling your soul? Well, first of all, I think we need to very clearly categorize our audience into a social category. So going back to this iceberg, right? For me personally, I categorize my YouTube audience between acquaintanceship and friendship. So with that in mind, I kind of have a better idea of what information to include and not include. So that's the first step to prevent oversharing on the internet. Second step is to see YouTube as more of a public speaking platform. And I'm going to reference the book Public Speaking for Authors, Creatives, and Other Introverts by Penn just because I read it recently. But I think what I'm about to say is just general public speaking fundamentals. First, it's about the audience and not about you. And I know this is your platform, it's your YouTube channel, but also through this YouTube channel, you are trying to give the audience some kind of information that you have, and you're trying to like help the audience in some kind of way. So always make it about the audience and what you can do for the audience through your words. And then second is every piece of information should serve a purpose. And I'm talking about personal information. If you want to include points of vulnerability, I think we can easily fall into the trap of just trauma dumping or like talking to a camera as a therapy session. But I think when you are saying something vulnerable, it should have a reason behind it. Whether it is you want to reach the people who have a similar struggle as you, or you want to use that information as a personal testimony in order to connect with the audience and then give them advice according to the shared struggle. Every like vulnerable piece of information you say should be of service in some way. And third is more so my personal opinion, but I don't think ongoing struggles should be shared on YouTube videos, and I'll explain why. First is hindrance of growth. When you're going through a struggle, I think it's very important to take a step back from your online persona if you have one, and to sort things out by yourself or with people who know you more holistically as a person, such as people who are deeper in the iceberg, like your best friends or close friends. And by attempting to portray your ongoing struggles in a video, you are kind of affecting this growth process, because you're never going to accurately portray your struggles on camera, because you're naturally going to edit parts out and include parts you want to. So it can never be a very accurate portrayal of what you're going through unless it's a living conversation with a person that you're close with, or you know, a therapist or someone. So I think by attempting to put that on camera and then listen to the feedback from the very polished version of your struggles, you are affecting your ability to actually process your struggles properly off camera. And here's another reason why I don't think ongoing struggles should be included, and that's because I think struggles that you've already processed will be of best purpose for the audience, because when you're talking about things that you've already gone through, you have gained a higher level of wisdom from them that you can then use to help the people who are going through that struggle just like you did. So those are the steps I have to prevent selling your soul. And now this brings us to chapter 4, specific stuff, like actionable steps to take. And these are some things that have helped me. First is to keep a separate video journal and personal journal. So this is my video journal. And I say this because when you start using your personal journal content in videos, the line between your online persona and your holistic person gets a little bit blurry, and there should be some kind of way to separate the two. And having a video journal I found really helps with that. And 2, having a questions list to ask yourself whenever you are disclosing personal information about yourself, to fully assess your decision to include that or not. And the questions I have for myself are, would I tell this information to someone who is between friend and acquaintance? Is it something I have fully processed? And is it something that I'm allowed to talk about? And let me explain what this means. So the third specific step is to keep an off-limit list for the topics that you cannot talk about in videos. And you really need to sit down and understand what is very personal to you that you cannot by any means talk about on YouTube, because you know you will regret it. And that's what I mean by, is it something I'm allowed to talk about? Is it something that's off my off-limit list? Okay, final chapter, limitations and conclusion. First limitation is I'm a new YouTuber. I've been a YouTuber for 3 months and I'm not a full-time YouTuber. But if you are a full-time YouTuber or a long-time YouTuber, you should reach out to me so we can have a conversation about it. I'm so approachable. But second limitation is, like, you know how I said we shouldn't share our ongoing struggles? Well, aren't there some times where someone sharing your ongoing struggles and having kind of a rant session style video could help a lot of people who are going through the same thing, because it feels nice to know that someone else is going through that. So that's something I'm really not decided on yet, but mostly I would say these style videos should be limited. And then third limitation is, this is all just my opinion, that goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. And then I have not a limitation, but it's like a question thing that I had for myself when I was scripting this video is, does this process of information filtration compromise the authenticity of my videos? And you can feel free to answer this question, but I already answered this question. It's no, and I'll explain this with 2 reasons. So first of all, it's not compromising authenticity because I'm sharing information in the context of who I'm talking to, right? So let me say an example. We all say things in different ways according to who we're talking to. For example, let's say an acquaintance asked you, how's your semester been going? You would probably respond with something like, oh, it's not been going great, but I'm getting through it, right? That sounds like a typical answer. But let's say someone like a best friend asked you how your semester's going. You would probably say something like, it's so awful, I don't like any of my classes or anything, but I'm trying to stay positive throughout it. See, you word things differently based on who you think you're talking to, and I don't think that's being inauthentic in any way. It's just kind of categorizing people you're speaking to a little bit differently. There is definitely a problem when the way you portray is very drastically different among everyone in your life, but those subtle differences are inevitable because there are always going to be people you're closer to and people you're not closer to. So yeah. And then a second reason why it's not compromising authenticity is because you're saying these words in the context of the communication method. And let me expand on that. So I'm selecting the words to say in context of this communication style as a video format. And because it is a video format, it's naturally going to be higher yield, right? It's not a conversation where we're going back and forth because like you're not saying much. It's supposed to be of service to you in some kind of way. So the information should be very carefully selected and have a purpose. If it's a conversation, you would alter what you say in context of what you're talking about with that particular individual. But as a video, I have your attention, I have your time, and I have some kind of obligation to make you feel like you've gained something from watching my video. I hope that made sense. So no, I don't think this compromises authenticity. In conclusion, please don't sell your soul, and please let me know your opinions in the comments below. Bye!